Trust me, much like Rand Paul's neighbor, most of Rand Paul's colleagues in the Senate, and really everybody who's ever met Rand Paul, we would rather not be talking about Rand Paul. But we have to talk about Rand Paul because he does so many things that seem to be contrary to the very interests of this nation and in the interests of a different country known as Russia. Today, there was a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing. Paul is on the committee with Secretary of State Blinken, and we're talking about Russia and Ukraine. This should be pretty straightforward. A lot of Republicans are jumping into bed with Vladimir Putin and loving Russia as recently as 6 months ago, but now most of them are hiding and pretending they never said anything like that about this terrible autocrat and this murderer because they realize where public opinion is, and that's all that matters to them in the end. But man, you got to give credit to Rand Paul. He's still hanging in there, and he's been doing Russia's bidding for a long time. What did he have to say? Secretary Blinken pointed out that the countries that were attacked, in this case, we're talking about Ukraine, and I believe he may have been referring to Crimea before this, these were not part of NATO, which is true. I wish they were. The response that Rand Paul gave was, but you could argue they were part of Russia, to which Blinken sort of shockingly, and I think probably most others in there said, no, it's up to these countries, these sovereign countries, to decide their own fates. You could not argue they're part of Russia. And then, Rand Paul tried to save his ass by jumping in and claiming something, oh, they're part of the Soviet Union. Okay, so now are we handing back to Russia everything that was part of the Soviet Union? I mean, who would even think that way? Who in the Republican Party, did this guy ever read anything written by Ronald Reagan or anybody since? This was the party that at least pretended to be anti-communist. This guy now is saying that these countries that were once part of the Soviet Union, forced to join the Eastern Bloc, Russia has the right to attack them. And, this would be bad enough, but what makes it worse is Rand Paul's history. And the reason why so many are suspicious, that much like Kevin McCarthy said about Dana Rohrabacher and Donald Trump when he didn't think anybody was listening to Paul Ryan back in 2015, he said, well, I think those are the guys that Vladimir Putin owns. Well, a lot of us think the same thing about Rand Paul, and there's good reason. First of all, it's a Paul family tradition. Back in 2015, when Ron Paul, who had previously run for president and had been a congressman, was asked about the Crimean attack, he said, well, aren't they really part of Russia? I think that was pretty much his exact quote. It was along the lines of they're not really a different country than Russia. Let me get it exactly right. Crimea is not exactly a foreign country, according to the Russians, as if they have any say in whether somebody else's sovereignty belongs to them, which is exactly what Secretary Blinken pointed out to his son, Rand Paul, today. But it gets worse. A couple of years ago, Rand Paul was one of the few that fought against voting and blocked the Senate from voting on sanctions, to which then the late Senator John McCain said, it can be said now that this senator is working for Vladimir Putin, that Senator Rand Paul is working for Vladimir Putin. He came right out and said it, and this was in his own party. I wish there were more who were speaking out like that about Rand Paul today. Later, in 2018, Trump's been in office for a bit. Rand Paul literally served as a message boy, a messenger from Trump to Putin. I don't know if this is like a high school romance. It was love letters, passing notes from one part of the classroom to the other. But he went over, and I want to make sure I get this right, he went over and he met with one of their foreign officials, Konstantin Kozachev, who's on their country's foreign policy council. He also happened to be sanctioned by the United States, but Rand Paul didn't care because Rand Paul is objectively pro-Putin and pro-Russia. He met with this gentleman and others, and remember, this is within a year and a half after they attacked our country. They led a cyber attack on our election, which every single group, including the Republican-led Senate Intelligence Committee, came to a conclusion that this is what occurred. Paul ran a letter over, and from Trump, he took a letter to Putin and met with these guys. So you've got so much overwhelming evidence. Paul has voted against any opportunity to sanction Russia. He's opposed every opportunity. He doesn't think the U.S. should be involved in any way, and even helping Ukraine. Again, this is a Paul family tradition. And it really makes you ask a lot of questions about where their loyalties are, where their bills are being paid, and many more things. But what it does remind you is we still have, at this point, after the genocide in Russia, after the mass murder, after their attack on our election and the rest, we still have a supposed Republican senator sitting there and making an argument that is in Vladimir Putin's talking points, defending Vladimir Putin. It makes you really not wonder why Rand Paul's neighbor did what Rand Paul's neighbor did. Again, defending Putin, defending Russia, not defending the United States against attacks against us, not defending women and children being murdered in Ukraine. That is Ron Paul. And again, folks, that is your modern Republican Party.